I would like to welcome you to this very first Startup Grind talk, which is organized by not one, but two cities at the same time, London and Tel Aviv. And we have a very special guest, because with this guest, we're going to build not one bridge, but two bridges between San Francisco, London, and Tel Aviv. If this is your first time at Startup Grind, please know that our mission is very simple. We want to help every entrepreneur on the planet. And we do it by organizing regular monthly talks in over 500 cities around the world, in over 125 countries. We also host conferences in the time of no pandemic in cities like San Francisco, London, Barcelona, Mexico City, Melbourne, Tbilisi, or Islamabad. This is throughout the year. Today, we have a special talk, and we have this special talk because a dear friend and director of Startup Grind Israel, Shahar, knows our speaker very well. So let me bring Shahar to introduce the speaker and tell us something about Startup Grind Israel. Shahar?
Marian and me are talking about doing and building bridges for 8 years now. So I'm happy to host these events together from Tel Aviv. Actually, the journey in Startup Grind helped us to understand what is the power of networking in a global level. And today, thousands of entrepreneurs, founders, and investors are helping each other based on these community bridges that we are building. So London and Tel Aviv are two hubs in Europe and in the Middle East. And I'm really, really happy with the relationship with Marian and the team. So now, based on this relationship, we can help so many local founders to scale to Europe through those chapters, and also founders and investors from UK and Europe to find their technology or solutions for their needs. Yes. I will be with you also in the networking part after. So thank you for joining us.
Tell us the secret. How did you convince Eugene to become your investor? Because I don't know. I don't think many people know that you are the lucky guy who convinced Eugene to invest in your new company, and now we have Eugene among your investors. How did you do it?
We will go back to relationships. So it all started with an introduction. So also Eugene mentioned Alex Fishman. Alex Fishman 4 years ago introduced Jan Koum and interviewed him on our stage. I think you, Marian, made an introduction between me and Alex Fishman. This is how all the relationships start in Redwood City in our global conference. Alex thought that after Eugene quit from Facebook, that the relationship with Startup Grind can open the world for him and bring some new technologies and ideas and show some knowledge and experience. As Eugene said, he loves Israel, and I'm in Israel and represent Israel in Startup Grind. So the mix of those parts give me the opportunity to invite Eugene to visit Israel after 15 years and show him what's happened in the startup ecosystem. In a week together, I had an opportunity to share with him my idea and my vision. And today we are also in the garage working on building a new product. I pray for more people, more good people like Eugene to join and help us to scale after. Yes. But now we need to focus.
I'm excited to start using the product. Hopefully you can, at the table now at the networking, tell people about it. In the meantime, we can bring Justine on stage.
Hi everyone, how are you all?
There you are. Hello, Justine.
Lovely to be here very briefly. I'm a very proud mum, and at the same time there may be kids running through here, so apologies in advance. I work for the London Stock Exchange and also Borsa Italiana. The London Stock Exchange is the host to many, many international companies, many from America and 26 from Israel. We are very privileged to host the sovereign bonds of Israel, over 10 billion. And actually, you may not know that we started actually as a startup in a coffee shop a few hundred years ago. And I'm very, very, very pleased to be here with you all. And I think the key to in all these times is community and networking, and that's what Startup Grind always does. And we are thrilled to introduce you to the fabulous Eugene, who, first of all, is the best dad, an enormously wonderful, humble person, a philanthropist, a social engineer, and sending you lots of good vibes, and we're here to support.
Lovely, thank you. What a better person, there's no better person in the world to introduce a speaker, because Justin is from the London Stock Exchange in Israel, which is representing both parts of these cities which we are now hosting this event. Justin, thank you very much for this. And Eugene, hi.
Hey,
hi to Silicon Valley. Very happy to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Yes, so, and we have audiences from London and Tel Aviv, and hopefully from all around Israel and the UK. So, Eugene, you studied mathematics, and then at some point you decided to change and go for becoming an engineer. Tell us why.
Well, it's really, really hard to make living with the math. Math is amazing science. Math creates very great structure in your brain, but at the end of the day, it's hard to make living with that. And honestly, engineering and the advancement of computer science and all this cool stuff that was happening was just so interesting. It was hard to pass by. So it was kind of a very natural move for me.
Okay, and so you finished university in St. Petersburg?
St. Petersburg, Russia, yes.
And then you decided to come to California. How did it happen?
Actually, the whole family immigrated, my parents and my brother. So I kind of followed my family, and it was a bunch of reasons we did that. But you know, having an ability to come to Silicon Valley and be right in the center of the computer industry actually helped quite a bit. So that was easy decision to make.
And when you came to California, was it easy or hard for you to assimilate, to find new friends, and to find a job?
The social aspect was a little bit hard. I had very active social life back in St. Petersburg, so you know, having all of that kind of yanked out from you is tough. So it took me some time. Also, I didn't speak almost any English. It was very basic, so it was a big language barrier for me. So that was another kind of issue. On the other hand, the computer programmers were in such a high demand at the moment, because I came in '99. It was more or less the peak of the .com bubble. So it was really easy to find a job, and I had a few interviews and almost right away. So that was that part was actually easy. But you know, any immigration, however well you prepared, will be a little bit tough. So yeah, it was a curve.
So you made it happen, and then you found some friends locally. Tell us, how did you meet with Jan Koum, the founder of WhatsApp?
So we met through social circles. We had common friends. One of them is Alex Fishman, that you know got me introduced to all of you guys. So and there were this kind of social gatherings where we interacted socially, and so I knew about WhatsApp way before I actually joined it. So it was a social connection to Jan.
And you had a job, a stable job, which you did for quite a while in testing measurements or measuring hardware. And then Jan somehow convinced you to join his company, his startup, which was not clear if it's going to be a success or not, even though, you know, in Silicon Valley, you have lots of other big companies you can join. Why did you decide to join his company, which nobody knew about and nobody knew if it's going to be successful, and not one of the big tech giants?
So there are a few reasons. So I was, after 10 years in the previous job, in the previous industry, I was really ready to switch to the internet industry. I lived next to Google, and it was bugging me that I'm not working for the internet industry, because all the cool things were happening there. So I was actually ready to start looking for a job in a big tech company, big internet companies like Facebook, like Google, and so on. Jan kind of started talking to me about joining WhatsApp, And as you mentioned, it was not clear at all that this is going to be a success early on. So, that was a leap of faith to join it. On the other hand, he hired me not for my specific knowledge in the internet industry, but just for my general, I guess, me being a generalist specialist in the programming industry. So yes. I really appreciated that. That was my opportunity to learn on the job, and he provided me that opportunity. Also, the other thing was his vision, because that was the time where the whole world was slowly switching towards mobile, and few people realized how big it was going to be, and Jan was one of them. And I honestly wasn't one of them. So it took some time convincing, but his vision was just really kind of contagious. I was really wanted to follow him, and even though it wasn't clear how much of success it's going to be, that was just a journey I wanted to take, and I'm pretty thankful that I did.
Yes, it's you're lucky you did. Tell us about how you started at the beginning. So your office space was a few cubicles, I think 6 cubicles in the Evernote building, right?
That's correct.
And I know that for a very long time there was no signage of WhatsApp. Nobody knew where your company is based. Why was that?
That was sort of reflection of the most fundamental value of the company, which essentially was a huge part of success and a huge part of the whole story, and that's a focus. We didn't never want to be distracted. We wanted to do our work, and we didn't want to talk to the press. We didn't we wanted to really focus on our product. We wanted our product to speak for us, not ourselves, right? Not interviews, not media, not anything. So obviously we were lucky that we could afford it in terms of, we already had the viral growth and people were using the app, and we didn't need to promote the app that much. It was kind of promoting itself. But all in all, not having a signage, keeping very low profile allowed us for many years to work kind of under radar and not being the part of the hype of the Silicon Valley.
Yes.
And at the same time grow to really amazing size and become very important service for the world.
And you said focus, yes. And so at the very beginning, you built the solution and you launched it. And we had Jan on the stage a couple of years ago, and he said that he was super excited and he expected lots of users to want to use it, and nobody was using it. And then something changed. Can you tell us about the atmosphere in the office? Because it must be, heart crashing when something like this happened. And how did you find the way to the product market fit?
So that story actually happened very early on when Jan started the company. He started it not as a messenger. In the beginning, it was a different kind of product, kind of a status product where you broadcast your status and there's no kind of back and forth. And that product, that was still a very revolutionary idea because it utilized the phone numbers as a kind of naturally existing social network. But the application itself was not successful, right? So the underlying idea is very beneficial, and today everybody is using it.
Yes.
But the actual application that was built was not successful. And then at some point, with a bunch of signals kind of coming in, the pivot was made into messaging, and that turned out to be extremely demanded product because people were really upset with the cost of SMS and traditional texting. In many places around the world, it was just obscenely expensive. So when you get an alternative that works anywhere, and you were getting Wi-Fi. By that time, you could get Wi-Fi almost anywhere, any coffee shop around the world, right? So you get sort of detached from this draconian contract with the cellular network, and instead you connect through any sort of internet connection, and it's free after that, right? So that was very resonating with a lot of people, and in a few countries around the world, the application just took off. It was just apparently it was in such a high demand that we were just struggling with the growth.
And let's zoom in on this one, because the struggle is very important to know how you dealt with it. Can you tell us what phone did you use at the time? Do you have a Nokia of some kind?
I actually, the same time I joined, I got my very first Android phone, which was the very first Android 2.0. It was the first Android phone that was able to send push notifications.
Wow.
We brought it into the, so it was still very early. Today, Android users would not be happy with that. But at the moment, that was quite a breakthrough. And yeah, so I was a Google kind of Android guy. Yeah, that was a big step for me.
So you were a pioneer even in smartphones, where you had one of the very first.
I went from a feature phone, like a flip phone, to real Android phone. And but I let me say real quick about Nokia. Nokia was an enormous part of the WhatsApp success, because early on, right now, nobody even remembers what Nokia was, but at the moment, majority of smartphones in the world were Nokia. They were early kind of Symbian smartphones. They're not really smart, if you could say, but they were smartphones, and Nokia was so prevalent around the world. It was really good move on our part to really engage with Nokia, and we had a really good relationship with them. And even though eventually it died out, it really played enormous part in our success. So that was a very good move.
There is one thing which WhatsApp team doesn't get enough credit for, and this is how much efficiency you build into the technology. Now, before we dive into this, I would like to offer the audience an opportunity to ask questions. If you see on the right, you have this Q&A box. Feel free to jump in and ask anything you wanna know from Eugene. I promise you that the most interesting questions, you can vote for them. We will answer. Now, Eugene, it's incredible how much your technology was working. Can you tell us about some numbers about how many engineers were at the company, and what number of messages have you transferred per day, for example?
So I'll give you a couple of numbers. I joined in 2010. By the new year, we had 10 million users. And by the next new year, we had 100 million users.
Oh, wow.
So that's a 10x growth on already large scale, 10x growth in a year. So that was, I mean, obviously we didn't have growth like that after that. It was kind of, flattening out more. But that was unbelievable year. We literally were fighting for surviving the scale. And it was just major fight. So yes, efficiency. Actually, let me give you another number. So by the time Facebook acquired us, we had 32 engineers. These 32 engineers is essentially 10 people in the infrastructure group and 7 small teams running the application development, the mobile development for 7 different platforms at the time. So, with the 10 infrastructure engineers, that was the early infrastructure group that got us to the point where we were serving 500 million users. And I don't remember the number of messages per day, but I think that was about the time where we were catching up with the world volume of SMS. So it's about 20 to 25 billion messages per day.
Wow.
The entire world SMS was that much, and WhatsApp was that much. Right, and obviously we surpassed them since then, but that was a pretty significant service to run with 10 people. Yeah. So yes.
Tell us about some downsides. Like, did you have server blew up and people couldn't use it? Or how did you solve the emergencies with so few people?
So having very few people created an interesting environment. First of all, obviously everybody is on call all the time. Right, so 10 people, more or less, everybody wakes up.
Yeah.
The good thing about everybody being on call all the time is that there's this camaraderie that created, and if for some reason when emergency hit, you're behind the wheel driving or something, there will be more people who will have your back there. Right? So, so that was actually a very nice kind of supportive environment within the group. But the other side effect of having a small group is that that everybody's on call, and whatever you do affects everyone and affects you personally, right? You will be waking up in the middle of the night. So that created an environment where we were really, testing our stuff and making sure we put in production things that work. And that doesn't mean that we didn't have outages and issues. Of course we did. But the kind of mentality was that, you know, there is no some DevOps or some other group somewhere across the world that will be running things for us. It's us. There's like nobody else. So, you know, when you are responsible for the entire stack vertically, it creates this sense of ownership, and that affects the way you do things. It affects the way you test, and it affects, you know, how you think about deployments and all this. So that created kind of a little bit more honest engineering environment where people knew that they're responsible for everything. So that's how. And you know, the other thing is, you mentioned efficiency. Yeah, we were really fighting for having very small server footprint, so that the smaller number of machines is easier to manage. Again, let me give you one interesting example. One of the systems I personally was responsible for was a system that was serving profile pictures and group pictures, the avatars. And at some point, I had 2.6 billion images stored redundantly and served live from the set of 32 servers, just 32 machines.
That's incredible.
Serving 2.6 pictures live with enormous QPS. So the way I was dealing with that is I would open 32 windows on my screen. It was I was able to actually put like tile 32 windows, and I could type individual commands in any of those windows, right? So that's the entire, you know, profile picture system of WhatsApp was being able to be served by like one monitor that I had, right? So that just tells you how much we were focused on, you know, smaller footprint allows the engineers and you know, we were ourselves the operations guys as well, allows you to deal with that in much more efficient way. If I had thousands of machines, obviously I would have had, you know, to create a lot of automation and processes and hire people. Like it would have been different world, right? But I was able to serve it myself by typing commands in a few windows. So
did you host
that of the overall focus, you know, mantra that we had, you know, focus, smaller footprint, and the other side effect is, you know, let's not grow the team if we don't have to, right? Because the second you have a 100-people team, you have to create a whole bunch of structure within that team. And we were able to stay very small. When you have 10 people, you don't need any structure. You don't need managers. You don't need, you know everyone. You know who is doing what. So that was a blessing that we were able to keep team small and keep the focus.
That's true. Did you host the technology on Amazon, or how did you build the technology?
We used the soft layer, which is later acquired by IBM. It's a private cloud provider, and essentially they were building machines by our specs, and then putting them in the racks and essentially connecting wires, and then we did everything else. So we would load the operating system, we would load our own stack on that, and run those machines ourselves. So
I'm sure
it was.
I'm sure the bill for the storage must have been quite a lot. Was it hard for the company at the beginning to find funding? I know, you know, Brian, when he was coming in, one of the co-founders, he brought some seed money with him, but afterwards you probably needed some more money. Was it hard, or was it easy to convince the investors?
So I think the very smart thing was done. You're right that the arrival of Brian brought in a small seed round, and then after that, the experiments were made to make the product, you know, not free. And in the early days, you could just download it for free, and then in the next few years, there was $1 per iPhone download. And again, it did not come easy. There were experiments to figure out that this introduction of that $1 doesn't, you know, cannibalize the network and doesn't cannibalize the user growth. And after a few experiments back and forth, it was, you know, it was established that no, the strength of the network and the virality of the product was actually working for itself quite well. So we were getting $1 for each user who comes in, maybe not $1, but you know, some proportion of $1. And you know, very quickly with the growth, we became kind of sustainable. So after that time, you know, fundraising was easy and wasn't the primary goal. But you know, in the early days, yes, it was a seed round that you had to convince investors that it's a worthy enterprise. And then you also had to do the business model, which we did, and it worked for quite a while.
Yes. Tell us about the culture of WhatsApp, because it was a small team, lean team, super focused, very hardworking, because you took the ownership of the entire company. If you compare, the WhatsApp environment to other companies where you worked, how was it different? The culture.
Yeah, I think the culture was really around focus, less, theatrics or office things that you would expect, right? No, all these colorful things that you think about when you think about Google Campus or Facebook Campus or all this. None of that was present. So it was the early success of the product kind of helped create this interesting environment where we didn't need to convince ourselves that we're doing a good thing by creating all these employee events or by doing a lot of things inside the office, because the things that were happening in our network and the feedback that we were getting from our users were so overwhelmingly good that we were like, why? I mean, that was such a influx of positive emotions for people working that they never minded working more and then being active and being really focused on the product. It was just our product was so rewarding emotionally that people didn't mind spending more effort on that. So that was the and there was the other thing is we always sat in an open office, but that was extremely quiet office. That was, you would rarely hear, you would hear conversations, but you would not hear this buzz and the noise that you would normally associate with open office. Usually it was communication on the messenger, because you want track of things, especially when you're firefighting outages and so on. You want to come back and revisit what was happening. So a lot of this was on messenger. That supported some people who were remote as well, who couldn't be in the office. So with that, there was always this feeling of, let's stay a little quieter. Let's respect everybody's focus. Let's make sure that people can focus on their work. And that was maybe a little bit unusual environment. I know in the later years when we were getting people from Facebook to come over, a lot of people were surprised just how quiet and how focused our room actually is. So
interesting.
Yeah, that was a little bit unusual.
How did the culture change after the acquisition?
So after the acquisition, for the first 2 years, we continued in our separate building and even a separate town. Facebook didn't move us to the main campus for 2 years. And after 2 years, they did. And we became part of the Facebook campus. And the Facebook campus is a big, amazing place.
Yes.
It's like an adult Disneyland, more or less. There's just so much fun things happening, and it's a really happening place. So that came a little bit in a collision with our focus mentality. On the other hand, I think one of the biggest changes that happened after acquisition was not really the influence of Facebook. It was just the growth that we experienced internally, because the team, when they bought us, it was like 32 engineers, 55 total people in the company. And 4 years later, when I left, it was like 700 people company. So it's unbelievable growth, and this growth is not easy. The scale, like scaling the infrastructure, is not easy. But at the end of the day, you have recipes how to do this. Scaling the organization from small numbers to large numbers, what is really hard to scale is culture. Culture is very much dependent on the closeness of the group and all this. So yes, the culture got really changed inside. There was, we started spreading spaciously, and I stopped recognizing some people. I didn't know everybody's name anymore. So obviously it changes the dynamic. But again, my thinking is that it was more because of our growth than because of some changes coming from Facebook, although they were coming. Obviously, Facebook is a different company. So it slowly started changing. But for the first 2 years, we were able to kind of maintain mostly our own environment. So yes. I'm thankful to Facebook for that.
And when you look at the technology of Facebook at the time, when you were coming closer to Facebook, what did you think about what they built and the way they built it? Was it useful for you, or Did they learn a lot from the way you build WhatsApp?
So there were differences. There were quite significant differences. Since we were very focused, we had a small team. We didn't have any automation. We did a lot of things manually, and we were able to cut a lot of corners in the way systems work. And our systems were super resilient, and talking to each other. They were absolutely counting on the other system being online all the time. Whereas the Facebook is such a massive infrastructure, they just can't afford to do that. They have to deal with failures, and there are always some failures here and there. So there was a little bit of a different mentality in engineering. On the other hand, Facebook had luxury and had very smart people to develop things that we just didn't have capacity to do. For instance, like one good example would be fighting the spam and abuse. By this year, in the year 2014 is when they announced the acquisition, and then the deal actually closed at the end of the year. So throughout that year, it was a really tough year for us in terms of fighting with abuse. The network became really big. A lot of people were taking advantage of that, a lot of spam, a lot of abuse. And we did not really have a good answer to that. So by the time we joined Facebook, we were lucky to get in touch with the Facebook team that was doing this fight on their side, and they helped immensely. And we really solved the problem of abuse in WhatsApp entirely with the help of Facebook. So if you talk about timely, union between two technological companies, that was perfect match right there. And there are a few other examples like this. We were able to launch the voice and video product using a lot of Facebook data centers around the world. So that there was a lot of good that came from that. And but we kept our own stack. The core product is still written in the same Erlang language that we used before, and we kind of proud of this. I think there's a lot of success in the way we did this, and they were accommodating of letting us continue with our stack, and then slowly start integrating bits and pieces. So I think all in all, it was a successful partnership.
Yes. Let's look at some questions from the audience. We have a question from Nilesh Kale. He wants to know, do you foresee more deeper integration APIs with WA? I don't know what WA means, for applications in travel and payments, especially micropayments.
So I know that WhatsApp is working on payments product, and I don't know what stage it's in today, but definitely payments is a one very clear application of the big network that you could do. Now, whether there's going to be more APIs and more integrations, that's an interesting question. On one hand, you would expect that. On the other hand, traditionally, the WhatsApp was very reluctant to do a lot of integrations for many different reasons. And so it is slowly happening. There is the business product right now where you can have the APIs, and you already probably all of you have seen some applications around that of talking to businesses and talking to some automated systems. But again, WhatsApp is taking a slow approach and taking a very cautious approach to this, because the most important thing for WhatsApp was and remains the health of the network as the way for people to communicate with each other.
I agree.
Nothing else is going to work unless people continue being confident that WhatsApp works. It works good and fast and reliable, and it has the privacy, it has the security, like all these attributes of WhatsApp that people started relying on over years. That's fundamental, and you never want to undermine that with any additions, APIs, integrations, and so on.
Yes. In your opinion,
it's going to be happening, but it will be slow and very careful process.
In your opinion, is it good to keep WhatsApp super focused on what it does great as it is now, or keep expanding and building it into something like WeChat today? What's your personal opinion?
I honestly think that if you if you focus, if you kind of position that correctly, then you can do more than just basic application. But the important part is that at any point, whenever you want to introduce some feature, you have to consult with the most fundamental questions. And most fundamental question is, does it make the experience of average user better or worse? Does that make application more bloated and unusable? Does that make messages heavier and you use more bandwidth on users' phones, or you use more batteries, and so on? So unless you have very, very strict and very vigilant kind of approach to evaluating these new features and new integrations and whatever, yes, you can expand more. And WhatsApp has been introducing new features, not like it's stuck forever. But you have to be very, very vigilant that your core product and your core user base continue to like you for what they, became your fans, right? So that you cannot lose them. So it's a dual-edged sword, really. You have to wield it carefully.
We have a question here from Veronique Barbosa, and she wants to know, what role do you think WhatsApp might play in COVID monitoring or communication in countries like the UK, who haven't yet implemented this technology to do this?
I have some evidence. I've read some articles about how crucial WhatsApp is in India these days. I mean, WhatsApp is very big in India anyway, but these days with the COVID, it seems like it's an absolutely crucial tool. One of the reasons it's a crucial tool is that people tend to rely on WhatsApp messages more than they rely on other things, right? Because this is really a personal network that sends you these messages, and it's not like you're reading some fake news on the internet. So I think WhatsApp has this kind of reliability stamp and a trust stamp. And because of that, yes, it's for sure very much a great tool for any sort of disaster. And, we had an opportunity to test this with different kind of disasters before, but obviously there's nothing like COVID, which affects the entire world. So yes, I think, and I know that guys at WhatsApp are working really hard right now and have established hotlines in different countries, or the numbers for World Health Organization to deliver fresh information and so on. So yes, this is very valuable tool.
Okay, another question from Yuri Lev. He wants to know, what were the initial thoughts of a business model? It's a very interesting question. So how did you think you're gonna eventually make money with WhatsApp?
Honestly, for the longest time, we thought that we could use, we could have enough support from individual users to have the business running. And
you had the $1 per year at the beginning, right, per user?
Well, yeah, so in the very beginning, it was $1 to download the iPhone app, and then it's free forever. And at some point, we pivoted into $1 a year, or maybe like first year free, and then $1 a year.
Correct, yes.
But we did not really enforce that payment almost anywhere. It was just small subset of users where we would really ask for them to pay, and the rest of them we were just extending for free. And this smaller subset of users were actually providing enough cash flow to keep the company running. We were not making huge money. We would not be impressive by by the Wall Street standards, but we were able to pay our bills and pay our salaries and operations and everything. So longer term, the thinking was, and I think that actually ends up being the current thinking as well, is that we could make money off of businesses coming onto the network, because the thinking was that businesses need to communicate with people almost as much, if not more, than people need to communicate with each other. And introducing additional features, introducing the convenience for businesses to do that would really pay off, and businesses would be able to pay some premium for some premium service, and be valuable agents of that network. And I think these days WhatsApp is sort of doing the same. I mean, obviously many iterations later, but yes, they're still hoping to make money off of businesses talking to the users.
Yes.
So it's great that this original thinking actually prevails.
Okay. So these are the thoughts on WhatsApp, and then after WhatsApp, after the acquisition, I feel like a bit later, you decided to take a break, and you went and you kind of recharge your batteries, and then you traveled a little bit. You set up your charity, so you do a lot of things for philanthropy, which is amazing from your side. Tell us about what's next for you And what are you now? What keeps you busy today?
So I have three kind of parallel tracks running right now. One is philanthropy, as you mentioned. I started the foundation, and I'm supporting a lot of interesting organizations, and it's mostly about Jewish philanthropy and pro-Israel causes and all this, but not just that. So and it's very rewarding. It's a great way to give back. I'm really enjoying this. The other track is my general involvement with startups as investor, as advisor, and as maybe events like this where I can share a little bit of WhatsApp story.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of interesting one, because I worked at one of the most successful startups maybe, and you would say that I was part of this startup world, and I enjoyed it, but the reality is actually a little bit different. Namely, for the 8 years that I was there, I was kind of head down working all the time, right? So a lot of things kind of were happening in parallel, which I honestly didn't pay attention to, and I didn't have time to pay attention to that, right? So after I quit, I decided that it's a good opportunity for me to kind of catch up and see what were the technologies that kind of happened during those 8 years that I wasn't able to look at, and get involved with that. So I do a lot of kind of talking to startups. I'm investing a little bit, and I'm advising, and it's very interesting just to hear what people are thinking, and just to see the landscape. And you guys are doing an amazing job maintaining your community, so that's actually a great resource for me as well. So this is the second track that I do, and the third track is I actually wanted to do my own project and wanted to start my own thing. And
So you are back to the startup world.
I am back to the startup world. I picked one of the. I had a few ideas. I picked one.
Yes. And
I started. I hired a team, and it was a remote team even before the COVID. So for me, there was no change from when the epidemic started. And we're doing a product in a security and password management space. We are not out yet. We're kind of been in R&D for 8 months now, and we're in beta right now. But I kind of hope soon I can present that product, and looking forward to doing all this startup things again. And
yes, okay.
This time doing it actually the head of that startup, and not just one of the engineers. So have to deal with more stuff than before.
We'll follow the company. We already know from Just Eat that you are a great father, so hopefully you will not give up on this role in the meantime while you're building a great startup, because you need to be focused as well on both family and the business. Eugene, thank you very much for being here.